So hello everyone again, and thank you for joining us today for the first in a series of virtual meetings where DIR will take your questions on some important resources to help you during this COVID-19 pandemic. I really hope that we are finding you well today, that you are safe and healthy, and that the information we provide to you today will be of use as you all are serving the citizens of Texas. So if we could go to the next. My name is Andy Silva. I am the Director of Program Development here at DIR. The idea for this meeting really came out of some of the questions that we were seeing through DIR discussion lists and Ask DIR mail lists. So things that we were seeing that really showcased that state agencies were really needing and having issues with technology and technology solutions during this COVID-19 pandemic. On that note, we have geared this presentation to state agencies, but I think the information that we will provide today will be very useful to any organization. Just know that certain rules and regulations that we may discuss apply to state agencies, but we will try to make note of that as we go through. We do hope you find this useful. We have set up a COVID-19 webpage on the DIR homepage. You can find that at dir.texas.gov/COVID-19, and it's also on the homepage front banner. But we really wanted to provide a chance for you all to ask your questions to DIR staff in this virtual manner, this virtual town hall setting. So this is another avenue that we're trying to provide resources to you. Again, for all of you who just joined, if you have any question at any time, please feel free to type it in the question pane that you see to your right. We are working behind the scenes to get all your questions answered. We have a whole back end of DIR Resources who will funnel those questions through to us and if not, answer them immediately on the spot. So please, we welcome your questions. Thank you, Tracy. Let's get into our speakers. So again, my name is Andy Silva. I'm the Director of Program Development here at DIR. We will also be hearing from John Hoffman, DIR's Chief Technology Officer, and Herschel Becker, DIR's Chief Procurement Officer. So this is some pretty powerful people on this panel, and I highly encourage you to get your questions into them. This is a really great time for them to be at your disposal. They can't go anywhere, so please, we welcome your questions specifically for these speakers. The agenda for today is we are going to go through a quick presentation to provide a little bit of information about what DIR offers. We are trying to stay focused on the COVID-19 situation for this presentation, trying to focus on getting those solutions that are most urgent for you all in this situation. So we'll be going through the DIR offerings. We will also talk about what it means to procure during COVID-19, some of the considerations you should have in mind, and things that we are seeing as we are helping agencies and other organizations procure during this time. Again, we will hold some time for question and answers. This is the main focus of this presentation. But if at any time we run short on time, we will follow up with you with some more documentation on questions that we did not get to. So again, please bring your questions. We will try our best to answer them. And then finally, we will conclude with some next steps, what we will be doing in the next part of this series. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is the first of many in this series regarding COVID-19 and how DIR can help you all. So we'll talk about what is coming up in the next series. Okay. So I am looking at the attendee list and we have quite a number of you on the call, and I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with DIR, whether you're an expert, you know all about us, or whether you've never heard of DIR, but you know we can offer some help. So I just want to provide this slide to you as a reference. This is just a quick reminder that DIR is really a resource for you all, whether it be leading the state's technology strategy, protecting the state's infrastructure, or just offering innovative and cost-effective solutions to all levels of government. We are here for you. And we do this through some of our key functions that you see in that box to the right. Security, contracts, shared technology services, data, communications. That's huge right now. We're seeing a lot of activity around that. And then, of course, the planning and the policy behind all of this. So we are here as a resource for you all. Again, this is just a slide for our reference. And I will hand it off now to the core of our presentation and John Hoffman, Chief Technology Officer.
Good morning, everyone. I am John Hoffman, Chief Technology Officer at DIR, and thank you so much for joining us today. Next slide. DIR provides a wide array of different IT-related services, products. We do policy and best practices for public sector across the state. And our portfolio is so large with over 800 different contracts and multiple resources and such. We put together on our website a COVID-19 Preparedness for Information Technology page. And so what I was going to do today was just focus on what that page itself is and has on it. Most of it is a brief description with different links and such, but this page goes into all types of cybersecurity tips and hygiene practices. There's cooperative contracts for remote access and remote learning tools, and I'm going to go into that in depth here in just a minute. There's also components around what's the exemption and best practices around that. Bulk purchases with remote work, best practices combined in VPN accessibility. And then there's even a little section there around public information requests, which can be trying during this remote work environment, and what does Texas Open Data Portal provide and how maybe entities leverage that. So this page, we hope, is kind of the go-to page if you are looking for different resources to support COVID-19. Next page. The one piece that you'll see, and I mentioned in that around the cooperative contracts for remote access and remote learning, we go through the procurement process to negotiate these competitive discounts across these technologies and product services to make it a streamlined solution for all of you. And one of the different areas that we have quite a few contracts on is all around teleconferencing, video conferencing, learning and training services. And it can be a little bit overwhelming, I guess is one word, when you just do a search and trying to find, well, where do I go? What is the easiest way for me to understand what DIR is offering? So next page. So if you click on that cooperative contract link that was highlighted there, it opens up a spreadsheet. Now this spreadsheet has got all kinds of different remote access components to it, and it's, you know, it's large, but it's not overwhelming. Is the balance that we're trying to strike there. But it gets into, and we all went through, and some may still be going through that first component of how are we getting folks to be remote workforce. Then there becomes questions around, well, how do we set up different conferencing and such, and so this goes into several of those key components. You can see here the conferencing services and software on down that page. It's a static shot here, but if you all go to the website, it goes into the different telecom services. So if you're needing capacity and network type solutions, there's security services and network equipment that could monitor different security or performance metrics of networking. There's all the remote learning and emergency preparedness hardware components. And then we also get into the different services help with accessibility. We found that accessibility is crucial, especially with individuals who are remote, and making sure that not only is the state representing it as an accessible documents for public viewing, but also that those who are workers that may need additional help, accessibility is key. Finally, there's also sections on call centers and bulk purchasing. I think Herschel is going to go into some of the bulk purchasing opportunities, but no, Dell and Lenovo have great offerings with components available, and also DocuSign is something that people, as we're doing a new norm in our work processes, may be helpful. The next page. If you notice on that conferencing services, the top one there, we just did alphabetically, and I figured I would dive into a little bit just to show how you use the page, right? And so that top one was AT&T. And there were several listed, and there's a search. You can actually just go, we've preset some search components, but if you click on one of those links that's on that page, it takes you to the DIR contract detail page. And this is just an example, not representing any one company, but just trying to show what it looks like. The AT&T site is like all others, and it goes into what the different contract number is, the term. There's contacts there, both AT&T and DIR. There's a contract overview. There's all types of available brands and products, commodity codes, things that you would need to understand from a procurement standpoint. And there's also all the links to the contracts themselves, which can be very helpful in researching and understanding what that looks like. From another angle, you'll see that there is right there, kind of in the middle top left quadrant, it says vendor website. One of the requirements that we have, next page, is for the vendors to provide a customized page for the DIR offering. And this just is more detail from the vendor's perspective. They can put all kinds of different information, maybe tutorials or different videos or whatever they'd like around their service offering, how to order it, and what are some key links. Those key links should be the same as the key links on the previous page, but just another path for people to be able to find the information as a resource and what they need to do. If you click to the next page, Tracy, thanks. You know, I've kind of gone through the different contracts and the mechanisms, how to find that information. But one thing before I close is I just wanted to make sure that everyone remembers that the cybersecurity hygiene these days is paramount. You know, remaining vigilant and practicing cyber best practices really is crucial at a time like this, as the threat actors see this as quite an opportunity. We do have quite a bit around the different office of the Chief Information Security Office, teleworking tips and different collaboration tools, security tips. Part of the effort that DIR is working with entities this year is around House Bill 3834, which requires training to be completed by public sector employees and contractors who leverage technology more than 25% of their day. You know, I will speak personally of being from a remote work environment. It's given me a great opportunity to refresh that training. I did it myself, you know, I've done it a few times, but again, it just reminds us of best practices around how to work safely and ensuring that you're keeping the integrity of the state's data and our effort at a paramount and in the front. So with that, I'll pass it on to Herschel, who will go into the different procuring practices during COVID-19.
Thank you, John. Again, this is Herschel Becker, Chief Procurement Officer here at DIR. So today I'm going to cover a few relevant topics related to procuring during this COVID-19 disaster. On March the 13th of this year, Governor Abbott declared a state of disaster due to COVID-19. And in that proclamation, he specifically addressed contracting and procurement, suspending state statutes and rules to the extent that the enforcement of such regarding contracting or procurement would impede any state agency's emergency response. So that's important for agencies and vendors to understand that what triggers that suspension is if going through the normal channels would impede the agency's emergency response. Next slide, please. So now we have the flexibility to do what needs to be done, and we certainly have a need for speed. I'd like to cover how you can meet your need for speed with the flexibility that we now have as agencies and higher ed to do what needs to be done. Agencies and other DIR customers are able to expedite their purchases of laptops, mobile devices, and other IT products and services using the DIR cooperative contracts. Under the declaration, agencies do not need to comply with purchasing limits or competition thresholds, which could delay their purchases that are otherwise required through the Cooperative Contracts program since Senate Bill 20 went into effect. Further, to expedite purchases, DIR has negotiated bulk purchase agreements, and John mentioned those, with Dell, Lenovo, and SHI, directly related to the COVID-19 crisis. If you need additional information about any particular bulk purchase agreement, you can certainly contact Iko Neal in our office, and she's listed at the end of this presentation. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead too fast. If you could go back, sorry. So through these agreements and other cooperative contracts, DIR is assisting agencies with their procurements. Amy Pfluger, who is also listed as a resource at the end of the presentation, has been playing what we refer to as matchmaker, working with vendors to find in-stock inventory to meet agencies' immediate needs. So if you have, as an agency, have an urgent need and you're desperately trying to find laptops, mobile devices, or other products, you can contact Amy. Further, she's been able to work with companies like Atos, who stepped up and provided their own laptop inventory to assist state agencies by becoming a reseller under Dell and Lenovo contracts. DIR has other bulk purchase agreements that were initiated outside the COVID-19 crisis, available for whatever your needs may be at this time. These include Highland Software, Nubis, and Xerox for multifunction devices, managed print services, and enterprise content management, as well as DocuSign that I mentioned through Carosoft. John also talked about the cybersecurity training that is required as part of House Bill 3834. We are working with certified cybersecurity training providers who have DIR cooperative contracts to negotiate bulk purchase agreements for those training programs. And we should be updating our site in the coming days. So please consider using these bulk purchase agreements or any of the already negotiated contracts to meet your immediate agency IT needs. Purchases under these agreements come with the protections that DIR negotiated in the contract related to liability, data security, and more. If you do need to go outside the Cooperative Contracts program to meet disaster-related demands, please be sure to use the emergency procurement blanket exemption that's available. Now, next slide, Tracy. So you've all heard it, while supplies last. Businesses use it to get your attention and invoke a sense of urgency to make the impulse purchase. In this case, it is real. We hear it every day from vendors that have some inventory or had some inventory of computers and other remote working products. What we're suggesting to the agencies and other customers of DIR to lock in on orders for these diminishing supplies, consider issuing a blanket purchase order under the bulk purchase agreement or co-op contract. Issue it for the period of the disaster. Issue it for a sufficient amount to cover the unanticipated demand, and avoid the request for quote process during this disaster period. Supplies will not last long enough for agencies to issue the request for quote, get your response, and then issue a purchase order for a single order. Cut the PO, order against it as you have demand, and again, just during the disaster period. Once the disaster period ends, kill the PO. And you can consider using language on the purchase order that ends in conjunction with the disaster order, but give yourself enough latitude to pay for items that were ordered but had not hit the PO yet as of the end of the disaster period. Don't get caught trying to pay for something with no PO encumbering the funds after the disaster declaration ends. Next slide. So beware of free trials, and we've pushed this out before, but we're seeing it a lot right now during the disaster period, especially related to software as a service. I've seen them for various categories of products, including procurement. And this is a sort of a warning that I've sent out to the locals, because they were not necessarily prepared to work remotely and are adopting these e-procurement solutions on a free trial basis. If you're doing that, please be diligent in your review and acceptance of the terms, including those that are related to the trial period, the security, the accessibility, transition support, and price. So transition at the end. At some point, the trial period will end, and without the appropriate review prior to accepting the terms, the entity may find itself liable for additional products or services beyond the trial period. So consider issuing a purchase order, ideally under a DIR contract, to include the initial term at no cost, with optional renewals based on the established pricing in the contract or what you negotiate. This provides for continuity of services without additional procurements, and the ability for the procuring entity to terminate the agreement by simply not exercising the renewal. Next slide. This is also a good time for fraudulent activity. The FBI, the Department of Criminal Justice, and other organizations are asking us to be on high alert. They are anticipating a rise in attempts to exploit the COVID-19 event through a variety of scams. We've seen it before, and we've learned what to look for, but we can't let our guard down, especially now. We're moving so fast that we may get caught as well. Watch for spoofed emails, unsolicited proposals or offers like free trials, and other phishing scams with embedded links or attachments like fake invoices that could be used to do harm to you or your agency. Given DIR's affiliation through the Comptroller's Office with the National Association of Procurement Officers, I see a few emails every day from vendors offering PPE or personal protective equipment like masks and gowns and shields items. Not all of those are legitimate. The good news is that I can reply asking them to complete the supplier form on the texas.gov page, hashtag COVID-19. The Texas Department of Emergency Management then vets all of those offers. Next slide. So be right, be fast, and maintain your procurement file. So although we're working under a disaster declaration, don't forget to maintain your procurement file. Be able to tell a good story later. These are not exempted from audit. So consider where we may be in a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years from now when audit comes knocking and they're asking about these purchases that we're making during the disaster. So include justification for using the blanket exemption request. If you're using a cooperative contract, include the contract number on your PO. If you're using a bulk purchase agreement, include that number on the PO and send a copy of that purchase order to bulk.purchase@dir.texas.gov. And on this, consider what happens with your purchase commitment at the end of the disaster declaration period. I alluded to it earlier, and like free trials, be sure you have a path forward after the declaration ends. Be sure you've accounted for business continuity. As an example, if you procure a SaaS product under the emergency declaration, consider how you continue those services if needed. If you didn't complete the
Herschel, I'm sorry, real quick. Just so that we make sure we're getting everybody. Somebody might not be on mute, and we hear a lot of muffled and typing. So I just want to be sure we could hear Herschel, because this is very important.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're good. Yeah.
Thank you. So again, if you're procuring, as an example, a SaaS product under the emergency declaration, and you're bypassing some of the otherwise processes that you would have to follow, consider how you're going to continue that service beyond the disaster period. If you didn't complete the solicitation, how can you continue to use the service beyond the disaster? I would assume no. So now, how do you get your data out of the system and transition to the new solution if you even have one lined up? Or if you procured it in a way that allows you to continue the service. So I encourage you to begin with the end in mind, and good luck to everyone out there. Stay safe, and may all your procurements be expeditious, if I can say it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Indy and we can take questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Herschel. Real quick, before we get into the question and answer period, I just want to give everyone a heads up about our next virtual town hall series. We are going to be focusing on cybersecurity. Right now it is scheduled for Tuesday, April 21st, again at 11. We haven't sent out invitations for that yet. That will be coming real soon, and I could definitely send it out to all the attendees here today so that you all have that information. We're going to be talking about what we're seeing, kind of the general threat landscape that we're seeing come through our security operations, and then provide you all some tools and tips that we have been producing and providing as guidance. And of course, always we'll have that question and answer period. A few things on cybersecurity. We have seen some questions come through about certain teleconferencing and video conferencing platforms. We have produced a guidance document on tips for not just certain types like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, but for any virtual collaboration that you may use. Again, we are here as guidance, but each agency should consider the risk for using these platforms based on their needs. We every meeting essentially has its own necessities, whether it's an open meeting or a secure private meeting. So you all are at your own agencies are going to have to make those assessments. We provide guidance at a high level, and we are going to continue doing that through our town hall series. So that is something to look forward to. And we are open for questions, so please feel free to type them in and we will get them answered in a timely manner.
So I see that there's a question about what remote telecom capabilities are available. I'm sorry, this is John Hoffman rejoining. Is there an ability to call out without using cell phones? Is there a solution using the laptop for such calls? And there are. So through different technologies, and you'll see that on the conferencing software components, there are different programs, whether it be through, if you're a capital complex agency, it could be through a Jabber type solution. There's within software within your entity, maybe there's with Office 365, there are teams that you can make calls through the internet. And so there definitely are different solutions. I would encourage you to work with IT staff, or you can bring it into Ask DIR, and I will certainly see if we can get our telecom folks to give a more specific answer based upon what it is who you're trying to call, and what your current system is and configurations. But there are different tools that you can use, leverage your computer for basically internet calls.
Thanks, John.
Andy, I can take the one about COVID-19 supplier.
Awesome. I was just going to pitch that to you.
Yeah. So the Texas Department of Emergency Management is handling the sourcing of all the PPE and other items that are being purchased. So if you go to texas.gov/, hashtag COVID-19, you'll see some options there to fill out forms for being a supplier or a volunteer. And there's another one, I'm not recalling what it is right now, but you fill out that form, and TDM has a process whereby they vet the suppliers and the availability of the products, and then they move forward with the sourcing.
Yes, thanks again, Herschel. And I just sent that link out. So it's texas.gov/hashtag COVID-19. And there's a lot of helpful resources out there for state agencies that we are providing to our Texas citizens.
So I can take this one as well, I think. So do I have to go with the DIR approved supplier even if their quote is 4,000 more than Amazon? So I'm going to answer this in terms of the disaster declaration. So no, you do not have to go with the DIR approved supplier. You can, if this is in any way impeding the purchase, i.e. it might take longer to negotiate that $4,000 away or whatever the case might be, the governor's declaration allows you to go outside the program and take advantage of the emergency blanket exemption.
Yeah, one other point just to follow in on that is keep in mind, oftentimes the cooperative contract does have pricing in, but that pricing is negotiable. So it's a constant encouragement that we give to the different consumers to make sure that although our pricing is posted, it is what I would consider a minimum discount, and additional discounts could apply through negotiation. And you can follow up on that if you'd like to. Herschel, you speak procurement so much better than I do.
Yeah, no, that was great. And what we can do too is if we know that our vendors are giving you quotes that are that far off, let us know and we'll go back and further negotiate the master contract. Amy may want to address this one regarding the downloadable list of approved suppliers.
Yes, good afternoon or morning actually still. The downloadable list can be found on any DIR search. So if you search for computer hardware or laptops, that search will give you the a little symbol next to the search title that actually is an export to Excel button. That is one way to get a full downloadable list. You can also go to the Open Data portal and find all of our current contracts listed there in a downloadable spreadsheet.
And also I'll add in on the Excel file that I described around contracts for remote access, there is computer hardware with several different vendors listed, as well as bulk purchase and computer hardware search already set up. So just click the link and it will take you to that search right away.
I'll take the one, Indy, and I'll read the question. I have a purchase order for IT services that's due to end May 31st, and we're putting together the acquisition package to eventually be awarded, but there's a possibility that we will not make an award in time. Can we extend the PO under the blanket exemption for a number of weeks until the award is rendered? So I would say be careful about using or abusing the blanket exemption request. It is there specifically to address COVID-19 disasters, disaster response, where a normal procurement method would get in the way of you meeting your needs. This doesn't sound like that, so I'd be very careful about it. I'd suggest you get with your legal and procurement folks to address that one specifically. So I can take this one as well. If video conferencing services were purchased due to COVID-19, those services cannot continue to be used after the disaster is over. So the answer is it depends how you procured those services. If you procured those services in a manner that did not follow procurement statutes and administrative rules, then I would say that purchase is good for the term of the disaster. If you follow the rules, certainly you may continue those services. So going back to my points earlier, be very careful, begin with the end in mind, and consider how you're entering into these agreements for services that you need now, that you have to anticipate either continuing or getting out of at the end of the disaster period.
Right, so that's one of the precautions we're trying to communicate, is just to be careful when you see those services come in as free. Just be mindful of how we're going to get back to normal, or quote unquote normal, afterward. And just a quick note, as we're going through some more of these questions, if at any time y'all have a trouble searching or finding contracts on our website, please give us a shout out. We have contact information in the next few slides. If you have problems with the search or getting the information you need, we're trying to put as much information out there, but if at any time you need help, we are here. We have resources that are available to you, so please definitely reach out to us. We have the contact information in the slide deck.
I'll add to that, Indy. This is John Hoffman. Again, boy, communication is so important right now, and we have several different communities. There's different resources through discussion lists, and we have different IT sourcing newsletters that can be found on our DIR website. On the bottom left, there's a link there that says stay connected. And so it's just another resource and an avenue if you're looking for insight on technology as a whole, or what's going on with COVID. It's a great point to look at.
Thanks, John. So we have a question about blanket emergency exemption. Do you want to take that, Herschel?
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. Can you read it, and I'll try to answer it on the fly?
Sure. If a state agency utilizes the emergency procurement blanket exemption to procure outside of DIR, are other procurement requirements still applicable? Example, comptroller's emergency purchases, requirements of administrative code.
So the comptroller's emergency purchases are different than the governor's emergency or disaster declaration. So I would suggest you look at the contract, the procurement and contract management guide, and you'll see that distinction. So if I can try to give a more concrete answer, if you are doing a procurement under the governor's disaster declaration, comptrollers' emergency procurement rules do not apply.
Very helpful, thank you. Okay, please repeat the House bill and the training required for all security officers. So I think they're talking about House Bill 3834. John, do you want to repeat what you mentioned about House Bill 3834?
Sure. House Bill 3834 was set up to ensure that public sector employees who are on IT systems have a strong knowledge around the risk and cybersecurity threats that are out there. So by following different common security guidelines, entities have put together several different training packages, programs. DIR's role was to review and make sure that those training programs are complete and I guess accredited, if you will. And it enables then each agency to push that out to their employees. Each entity then is required to submit a declaration of completion through DIR by mid-June, which will essentially attest that their organization has completed it. There is a whole page on the DIR website surrounding the different details, the different accredited training programs, specifics on who is included and who is not. One note, and I mentioned it, was that if you have a contractor who has access to your technology, then they too are required to take this course. And if it's a contractor who has multiple entities, they need to be accredited for each of the different agencies or entities that they're supporting. So quite a bit of a detail around it. At the end of the day, it's just a fantastic position to ensure that we are protecting the information that is so important to all of us. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and John, this is Herschel. I might add to that and reference back the bulk purchase agreement that I was talking about. If you go to our site, you'll see the certified training programs, and you will see where a vendor may have a DIR contract. If you go to that contract, it's probably pretty difficult to find that particular training program. You would likely have to call the vendor to figure out what the cost is associated with it. So we're getting near the end of this first year. So what I'm working to do is to make that pricing available. So in the coming days, we'll post something for those vendors that have come back to me, and we're doing a bulk purchase agreement, and I didn't give them any deadlines. First come, first serve. As they come in, we'll tee them up. So you will see that some of those vendors with certified training programs that have a contract will list for you the actual training program that was certified with a price associated with it. In at least one case, the vendor is offering free training for over 3,000 modules that they have in their program. I've asked them to come back and give us the line item so that the agency staff and the contractors know which of those 3,000 programs or modules they need to take to get credit for the training program. So more to come in the next several days, and the ones that are early to the table are going to get their information displayed. We'll likely also allow them to include a link so that you can learn more about the program. Some of those certified training programs are 1 hour, and some of them are multiple hour courses. Some of the vendors offer some value add around the training itself, including reminders. So if you sign up for one that has the reminders, you will potentially get that sort of tickler every year to make sure that you're renewing your training.
Yes, and I'm getting a note from our Chief Information Security Office that those modules that they need to take are listed in the list of certified programs, and it also lists the estimated duration time. So that is some helpful information in that table. And I put out a link to where you can find all information regarding HB 3834. We sent it out to the entire audience. If you all want to grab that link, that will be your go-to for anything HB 3834. All right, we're winding down on the questions. If we missed anything, we will be sure to follow up. But we're going to try to wrap this up, give y'all some time back for your Thursday, is it? Thursday, Friday afternoon. We want to be sure that we are here to answer the questions that you need us to answer. But if I'm not seeing anything come through, I think we've got everything taken care of. Last call for questions, and we will We will be on hold for just a little bit as we see anything come through. We will be sending out the slide deck, and we did record this session, so you all will get a link to that as soon as we publish it. The presentation, actually, if you want to grab it right now, the slide deck, the entire slide deck is in the handouts pane. You could grab it right now, and it'll be your resource. Tracy, if you don't mind scrolling through, we have some important resources that we call these our phone a friends. Our procurement resources who are super helpful here for you all. We have their contact information there if you need to get your specific procurement questions answered that we weren't able to help today. But again, grab the slide deck and save these contacts. They are here for you, and they're a great resource to have. All right, I am not seeing any other questions. DIR Resources crew, DIR backend administrative crew, am I missing anything? I think we're good, right?
Thank you all so
Okay.
much for participating today.
Yeah, on behalf of DIR, we really appreciate the time that you took with us to go through this and to provide questions, because that helps us inform our outreach and the way we are communicating with our agencies and organizations. So thank you all for this. Next series will be on cybersecurity, so I hope you all bring your cybersecurity information questions for that. And we will send out an invitation for that presentation shortly, like real soon. So thank you again, Herschel, John, thank you for your time. Do you have any last thoughts? Are you good?
I'm good. Be safe, everybody.
Stay well. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe, stay healthy, be well.